Today on Chords and Coffee, we're going to talk about minor major 7 chords. Remember the first time I saw that and I thought, well, that's a made-up chord. That can't be a thing. Well, it is. And in fact, not only is it a thing, but it's something that we all love. And what I'm going to show you in this episode is I'm going to show you some chord progressions from some really famous songs that use the minor major 7 chord. Talk about what it is. Talk about an interesting thing that'll come up. I hate to say it's a misconception because I don't think it's right, but it's just another way of naming this chord and looking at it. So we'll talk about that. And then just as we go along, hopefully by the end of this, there's a little lick that I like to do that's born out of this principle that we use a minor major 7, which without further ado, let me jump right into it. Most of the time, when you're thinking about a minor major 7 chord, it's a minor chord that has a major 7 in it. So in the case of like an A minor chord, it's an A minor chord that has a G sharp in it, which is the major 7 of an A major scale. And so that's why it is a minor with a major 7, but instead of saying with a, it's just minor major 7, right? And you might go, where in the world would I use that? Well, it's the stairway chord. That second chord, right? But also, every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time, we bring you a free guitar lesson with Chords and Coffee. These videos take time and money to create, and it's our free gift to you. All that we ask in return is that you leave comments on the videos and that you subscribe to this channel. When you do that, you make a massive difference in our ability to help to continue to have Chords and Coffee online for free. Thanks for being a part of this community, and thanks for watching. What kind of got me thinking about this is there's a great Pink Floyd song, Us and Them. Here it comes. That chord right there, that is a D minor major 7. And what's interesting about that song is that most of the time when you hear this minor major 7 is sort of in that chromatic walk down, but in this song it's actually walking up to it, you know, classic, beautiful, off Dark Side of the Moon, and then it goes to this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you a bunch of these chord progressions. In fact, let's just start with that one right there, Us and Them. So this is a D sus2, and the reason I want you to learn these little chord progressions from these famous songs is I think it'd be real helpful to you even in your own songwriting, or even if you're just, you know, trying to, sort of figure out what should I do over this. If you kind of know the context of the minor major 7, it just helps, right? It helps you. It's a spice that you know how to cook with because you're going to enjoy some dishes that use that spice. So here it comes. Index finger is going to be on the 5th fret of the high E and the B, and your ring finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the G, and then there's going to be an open D string. So it's D sus2. It's kind of a nice way to make that. And then this is going to be an E sus2 over D. It's the same exact shape. Index finger on the 7th fret of the high E and bar in the 7th fret of the B. And then your ring finger is going to be on the 9th fret of the G with that open D string. And then this next one, so this is your D minor major 7. This is going to be index finger on the 9th fret of the high E. Ring finger is going to be on the 10th fret of the B. And then your middle finger is going to be on the 10th fret of the G with the open D string. Now, this little shape right here, this ends up kind of being a theme with the minor major 7, is like this little shape. And here in a second, we're going to see how that shape kind of correlates to some other chord grips. I don't want to give it away just yet. Oh, and by the way, if you want to resolve this, it goes to this G over D, and this is like a D shape, but it's up here on the 7th fret, so you're going to have your middle finger here on the 7th fret of the high E, ring finger is going to be on the 8th fret of the B, and then index finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the G, again, open D. I think that's the melody of that. Who knows what beautiful, beautiful tune. Another song I got, actually I had to Google this. It was like, are there country songs that use the minor major 7? And I even taught a lesson on this one. I totally forgot it. Gentle on My Mind. Gentle on My Mind. John Hartford wrote it. Glenn Campbell made it famous. Gorgeous tune. I did a whole lesson on that, and this was kind of before we started doing the chord charts on the screen. So if you need the chord charts, you can email me, and if you want me to, I'll revisit that lesson. In fact, if we do, I know just what I would do with that. But in the meantime, I'm going to show you these chords without the capo, just kind of in first position. So let's make a C chord. Index finger on the B string of the first fret, open G. You're going to have your middle finger on the second fret of the D. Ring finger is going to be on third fret of the A. It's a basic C chord. Right? It's knowing that your door is always open and your path. That whole sequence there is going to be C, then C major 7. Take your index finger off the B string. Everything's open. Everything's the same as it was before, just minus the index finger. And then for this A6 or the C6, you can kind of do it one of two ways. Probably the more correct way would be index finger on the first fret of the B, then your ring finger on the second fret of the G, middle finger second fret of the D, pinky's going to be on third fret of the A. But in the heat of the battle, a lot of times I'll just use my ring finger on the third fret of the A, index on the second fret of the D, and then my middle finger on the second fret of the G. Now, this is, even though it's easier, it's actually harder because I have to consciously not hit the B string. It's not wrong, but it kind of doesn't jive with this whole. Then after that A or C, I don't know why I keep wanting to call it an A. It's a C6. I'm holding down an A. Maybe that's one. Then you're just going to go back to a regular C because you want that open G string in there for that melodic content. But here comes the minor major 7. After all that, D minor, and then this is going to be index finger on the first fret of the high E string. Ring finger is going to be on the B string of the third fret. Middle finger is going to be on the second fret of the G, open D string. Then you're going to move your ring finger from the third fret down to the second fret of the B. Now, I'll also say this. Sometimes I feel like I like to make this D minor, going back to that chord, with instead of using my ring finger on the third fret of the B, I might go ahead and use my pinky on the third fret of the B. And then drop down to my ring on the second fret of the B to make that D minor major 7. And then down to this good old D minor 7, index finger straight across the B and the high E with your middle finger on the second fret of the G, open D. And then a D minor 6 right there, which is D minor with the B in it. That's going to be index finger is on the first fret of the high E, open B string, middle fingers on the second fret of a G, open D. And so that whole sheboing there is, let's see, back to the D. Let's see, let's do. And then goes to G and then back to the C to turn that around. But isn't that great? Go listen to that song, Gentle on My Mind. Now he's doing it in E flat. So that would be those chords with the capo on the third fret. You can also do a capo 1 and play it in D, which again is in that video that I did. But isn't that lovely? That's good. Now, this is the one when you think of minor major 7, you know this one. There it is. Right? Stairway, right? So this is going to be, and by the way, this ends up being really handy for kind of like the, kind of that almost sort of Latin kind of salsa thing, right? Great grip. It's going to be index finger is going to be on the G, the B, and the high E of the 5th fret. Your ring finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the D, open A at the bottom. Now from here, to do the stairway thing, we're going to go to our middle finger on the D string. It's going to come from the 7th fret down to the 6th fret. Index finger stays where he's at. Pinky, though, comes down on the 6th fret, with the middle finger. So on the D string, that A note is going to go down to that G sharp on the 6th fret of the D string, and then the pinky is going to be on the 7th fret of the high E. So, just like that. And then now your pinky is going to slide up to the 8th fret of the high E, and then your index finger is going to kind of come up here and grab that D all the way to the high E on the 5th fret. And then we're going to come down to this D It's D over F sharp. It's just a good old-fashioned D chord. You're going to have your index finger on the 2nd fret of the G, ring is going to be on the 3rd fret of the B, middle finger is going to be on the 2nd fret of the high E, and then your pinky is going to be on the 4th fret of the D. And then to this F major 7, index finger on the B string, 1st fret, 2nd fret of the G string with your middle finger. Ring finger is going to be on the 3rd fret of the D. High E is open. And then you're going to have this. I played that wrong for years. I would go full G chord. But apparently it's just where you have your middle fingers hitting that 2nd fret of the A string on that B. And then you can do all three, the D, the G, and the B open strings to make a kind of a G over B chord. But I think it's really just the D and the G. And then to the A minor. And away we go. Minor major 7 makes that possible, makes it beautiful. And that same sequence is the same thing that's in the song Something, Something in the Way She Moves. I've done several videos on that song, and I love that song. But when you get to that, don't leave now, you know I believe in how. That part there, it's that A minor again, right? This is going to be index finger on the 5th fret of the G, the B, and the high E, and then your ring finger is going to be on the 7th fret of the D, and then walking it down with the middle finger to the 6th fret of the D, and then index grabs the 5th fret of the D, and then making this D9 basically at that point. And in terms of the minor major 7 being a usable, utilitarian, kind of reach in your bag of tricks and pull it out when you can, this is what I would say is the first one that is very, very handy, because you can do that anywhere. And when you're doing that, let me get that D9 really quick. That's going to be middle finger on the 2nd fret of the A, index finger on the 4th fret of the D, and then your ring finger is going to be on the G, the B, and the high E of the 5th fret, D9. When you're doing that little, anytime that you're playing like a minor groove, I think about one of the first times I did it, and it wasn't in the song originally, but it sounded really cool to me. It was Unchain My Heart, Ray Charles. There's a lot of moments where you're just sitting on a minor chord. And there's a ton of songs like that, especially songs that are minor blues. You could insert this minor to the minor major 7 to the minor 7, and then you could think of that next chord as the 4 chord, like in the case of A minor, it's D9, or you could think of it as it's going to the minor 6 of that same chord, like as in, for example, on Don't You Worry About a Thing, Stevie Wonder. That song, it's an E flat minor. And also just note, if I was playing this a lot, I would just tune my guitar down to E flat and then play it as though it were an E minor, because there's too much, it would sound way better, it'd sound more robust, right? But the song, it's an E flat minor, and he does that where he goes E flat minor major 7, E flat minor 7, E flat minor 6, right? And he does that. You could do that here, which is what we just did for the stairway thing. But here's another way to do it, where you're kind of more in the middle of the neck. And this is also equally handy. So this is going to be index finger on the 6th fret of the A, straight across to the high E. I'm going to build like an A minor underneath it, where I've got my middle finger on the 7th fret of the B, and I've got my pinky on the 8th fret of the G, and then my ring is on the 8th fret of the D. E flat minor. Not our favorite key, but here we are. And so then after this shape, here comes this guy, right? Remember I told you a while ago, this shape here, there's these shapes that keep coming up, and I'm going somewhere with that because I want to point out something here in just a second that's really interesting. Okay, so don't forget that. So you got this E flat minor shape. Here comes the E flat minor major 7. This is going to be your index finger is still going to be on the 6th fret of the A. Pinky's going to be on the 8th fret of the D. Now your middle finger is going to hit the 7th fret of the D string, the G string, and then your ring finger is going to go right behind it on the B string of the 7th fret. It's a little scrunchy, but you'll find a way to make that work. Now, if you might be going, Nate, my hands are too big for that. Well, just be patient with yourself. My old guitar teacher up in Kalamazoo, Michigan, John Raymer, has big hands. I remember he had like fingers that looked like bananas, but he could make this chord all day long, and you can too, okay? And I love you, John. You're a great player, right? And so then after that shape, you go to this E flat minor 7. Now, since we're already here, I know it's you normally make it with your middle and your ring finger, but we're already here. It doesn't make any sense to switch around our fingers because we wouldn't have time, frankly. So all we're going to do here is we're just going to take our middle finger off and kind of, come provide human capable assistance to the index finger here on the 6th fret, right? Everything else is the same, right? So your pinky is still on the D string of the 8th fret. Your ring is still on the B string of the 7th fret. And then we're going to switch to this, and this is going to be your middle finger is now going to be on the 6th fret of the A. Your index is going to be on the 5th fret of the G, and your pinky is going to be on the 7th fret of the B. It's a little precarious, but it's also, the cool thing about that, it's movable because it's already in a bar shape. And so if you're playing, like a blues, or even just if you're just sitting on a minor chord for a long time and you want to add some melodic interest to that, try doing this minor to minor major 7, minor 7 to minor 6. It's really cool. Or any combination thereof. You can start minor 6, minor 7, minor major 7, then minor chord. And that it adds melodic interest. It instantly puts it in this vibe of something that is, kind of Latin-y, right? Which may not be an awful thing. In fact, it may be an incredible thing and just lifts the song into a whole new freshness that it didn't have before. But I am saying season with discernment, because it doesn't fit everywhere, but it does fit a lot of places. What you're going to find as you start to, for example, like if you Googled the chords to Don't You Worry About a Thing, you might find, instead of a minor major 7 here, it might say that it wants a B flat augmented, right? Why is that? Well, here's something interesting, is that, let's put this in C. If I play a C chord, and I play a C augmented chord, which is a raised 5th, okay? If you look at this, so here's a C, good old-fashioned C like I did a second ago. A C augmented would be taking your index finger, and instead of just laying it on the B string, I'm going to lay it on the G string too. Right? So think of Crying, Roy Orbison. To say, right? That, you've heard that a ton of times. Well, if you look at that chord, it's almost an F minor major 7. If I play F minor here, so index finger on the 1st fret of the G, the B, and the high E, and my ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the D, and I walk it down to that chord right below there, where it's like basically my middle finger is now on the 2nd fret of the D string. That's only one note different than the C augmented. C augmented is going to be a C, an E, and a G sharp. And F minor major 7 is going to be an F minor chord, which is F, A flat, C, but then it's going to have that E note in it. So the A flat, which is the same thing as G sharp, and the E and the C. So there's a C augmented inside of an F minor major 7. But you got to be careful, because the presence of that root note is a big deal, because it wouldn't sound right in Crying to go. It wouldn't sound right. It would take away from, when you want that augmented chord, you want that rising tension of just that one note, that one little chromatic melodic point of interest there, rising up to that, right? But it is interesting to note, because sometimes when you're looking at a chart, and I found this to be true, you will see a lot of instances where instead of calling for F minor major 7, they'll call for C augmented. And I think that might be because they probably have a bot making that chart, right? Because it's usually not that way, especially if you see after that augmented chord, there's an F minor 7 right after that. That should be a red flag. That they probably want F minor major 7, F minor 7, because that device loves to present itself in lots of different songs. You know, another one that I don't have for you, but It's My Party, I'll Cry If I Want To. That was one I looked up that said that it had a minor major 7 chord on it, but actually as I was playing, I was like, I think that's just an augmented chord. So anyway, be on the lookout for that. That's a tip from your Uncle Nate. Now you might be thinking, Nate, this is really cool, but I was really hoping to be able to have an idea of what's a solo on top of this. One of the things I really enjoy doing is if you're playing like a minor, like if you're just playing A minor, is to imply that passage of, imply that minor major 7 over it. So you have, and if you do it up high enough, you can kind of get away with it, right? So this little lick here, it's super easy. I'm doing this little quick, this little sweep, sleep. It's a sweep-ish. And I've got, basically my ring finger is going to be on the 14th fret of the G, middle finger's on the B string of the 13th fret, index is on the 12th fret of the high E, and I'm just sweeping down with my pick. And if you want to add a little snap to it, pluck it with your middle finger, kind of hybrid style once you get to that high E. And then hit the A way up here. Now on a acoustic guitar that doesn't have a cutaway, this is unnecessarily hard. I love this guitar, but for this lick I probably should have picked something else. But if I was doing it normally, I might use my pinky up there to get that A, but here I'm just going to use my ring finger because I don't know any other way to do it in this instance. So that's going to be, my ring finger is going to jump up here to the, 15th, 16th, 17th fret of the high E. And then to the 14th fret, do the thing again, and then to the 15th fret, and then down to the 14th fret. Oh, so 17, 16, 15, 14. Right? That's a cool little thing that you can do to insert a minor major 7, that little descending chord progression, even if it's not there, because everybody's ear recognizes that, because there's so many songs that have it in there, right? So I hope this helps kind of demystify that, and also helps you understand that there's some, when you look at these shapes, like that second shape of the stairway chord, that shape is almost an augmented chord, right? Like that. So you might see that, an E augmented when it really should be an A minor major 7 chord, right? So be on the lookout for that, and I hope that helps. Do you have questions about this? I love this kind of stuff. I love talking about chords. I don't know why, I just do. And if you're watching this, you probably do too. So fill the comments section up full of questions. If you have insight on this, I do not claim to know everything about anything. So maybe I missed something. Maybe I didn't say something right. I'm not offended or embarrassed if you say, hey, Nate, point of correction. In fact, there's been some great, internet friendships and connections that have happened over, hey, Nate, you didn't quite say that right, or did you consider this? I love that stuff. It helps build community, which is what we're doing every Saturday morning right here on YouTube at 9 a.m. We're living life the best we can with guitar in our hand. Friends, we'll see you next week for another Chords Coffee.